So Champs is over and PRX lost. Now, as a PRX fan, I have two decisions to make. Either I could accept the defeat in grace and congratulate EG for making an insane run at the title, or I could make a 6-minute video disqualifying everybody who's ever won anything in Valorant history, so we don't feel as bad for choking 2 grand finals. Guess which one I picked? Now, just a few disclaimers. Firstly, I stole the video idea and format from Barry, so link in the description. And secondly, I will be using a grading system from D to S to show how hard it was to give these guys Asterisk. Because while some teams have incredibly obvious flaws in their championship runs, there are a bunch of title runs that I had to research hard in order to get anything bad about them. And thirdly, if you get angry throughout the video because I talk a little smack about your team, just in most sports, the first ever championship really doesn't matter, and in Valorant, it might be pretty much the same. Absolutely nobody knew how to play the game right at the time, as evidenced by Durka playing Sova in the Grand Finals, and 70% of those who played in the Grand Finals no longer in franchising. Now, Sentinels took home the championship largely for having better mechanical skill, but that one feels more of like a cheap shot, so let's actually pinpoint the issue. You all remember what happened. A certain Sentinels member, Sinatra, had to leave the scene for a while because of a certain incident, domestic violence, and Cloud9 so generously rented TENS to Sentinels so that they could complete their run. Now, TENS then dropped a legacy 290 ACS, which is still the highest to this day by an insane margin throughout Reykjavik, and won Sentinels their chip. It feels like nobody really understands how insane this move was. Yes, Sentinels was down a player, but to bring in the most mechanically gifted player at the time, maybe even now, to win your AUG a chip out of nowhere would never fly today. It'd be the equivalent of PRX realizing they couldn't get something for Masters Tokyo, so they flew in Yay for the rest of the tournament and won the chip. Nobody would accept it. But this stupid move by Sentinels managed to fly under the radar and essentially gave them their name today. A lot of people forget how dominant Gambit was during their championship run. They dropped one map throughout playoffs, even beating Envy 3-0, so this one was particularly hard to find for an Asterisk. But eventually I found an incredibly stupid plot hole when I realized the game against Vision Strikers, now known as DRX, and the team they lost their map to, had a 6-man roster at the time with the 6th guy by the name of Lakia. Now, this dude had never played with the DRX roster throughout Masters, and the first map he played with them in a month was the game against Gambit. Now, I'll spare you the details, but essentially Vision Strikers thought it'd be a great idea to throw in a dude completely new to Masters against one of the strongest teams of the tournament, and they got 13-2, with the new guy going 7-4-14. Now, if Vision Strikers had done literally anything other than that, who's to say Vision Strikers don't beat Gambit 2-0 since they go on to win the next map? This would eliminate Gambit entirely, meaning they don't go on to win Masters. Now again, this is entirely hypothetical. Gambit is one of the most deserving winners in Valorant history, and I'm really stretching this. Good job, Gambit. If you don't know what happened during this VCT season, you're either new to competitive Valorant, or you've erased this season from memory entirely because of how confusing it was, and I don't blame you. The first ever champions, Acend won the title by beating Gambit in a close 3-2 win. Now, if you look at the playoff bracket alone, everything seems normal, until you get to the incident. In a group stage match against Keat Stars, Acend lost. This would have sent them to the lower bracket to play a very strong X10 with Scary and Sushi Boys, but Riot decided to pull the stupidest decision in history and give 5 rounds to Ascend, which eventually gave them the win, and this was because Keat Stars had used an illegal camera bug on Breeze in 6 rounds, which they eventually forfeited. But one bug does not determine a round. I get that they broke an official rule, but Ascend lost 13-8 that map, and I promise you, one camera would not have bridged that gap. Ascend should have been sent to the lower bracket where anything could have happened. Maybe they beat X10 and win champs either way, but the fact of the matter is, the first champions win in VCT history is forever tainted because Riot really didn't want a team called Keat Stars to win. Now, OpTic did really good this event, and it seemed pretty obvious that they were gonna win. 3 of the top 4 had never been seen before in the playoffs, so I think it was fair to say that OpTic was the favoured winner. But there is one thing to consider. Now, if you remember, around the time of Masters Reykjavik, there was one teeny tiny war with Ukraine and Russia happening, which changed a lot of things in Valorant. Most notably, Gambit got disbanded, but another thing a lot of people seem to forget is that FPX was not allowed to fly to the tournament and got replaced by Team Liquid because of visa and border issues. Now, if you know 2022 FPX, you know that they would go on to win the next Masters, even beating OpTic in the process, proving that they were an incredibly ferocious team, and OpTic dodged a huge bullet in not playing FPX at all. This was another really hard and long asterisk to find because for every 3 minutes of researching this section, I had to spend 30 minutes crying in bed thinking about how we could have not choked the grand finals as a PRX fan. But a year later, I really have to give it to FPX, alright? Even though they were lower bracket, most wins were convincing and they took up PRX in the grand finals to win it all. So that's my issue. FPX won against a team of barely legal teens and Benkais off the back of constant heroic 1v4s by Sugetsu and Xiao, which they have failed to replicate consistently ever since. And on the other hand, Forsaken and Benkai combined for an overall negative 33 kills. Mindfreak losing all of his ability to clutch 2 minutes before the game started, and Jing missing 9 total outs throughout the series. Again, this is really stretching it, and behind my words are a lot of salt, but the series and tournament pretty much came down to PRX throwing more than FPX being the better team. Ironically, you're gonna see that same statement in this video later on. It is abundantly clear to me that during Valorant Champions 2022, Brazil replaced Aspa's hand with a robotic one because for 2 weeks this dude looked like Jesus. Yeah. Okay, these are a lot easier. If you're a Fnatic fan, close your ears because you will not like the truth. You were not meant to win. Listen, if you managed to come back from a 3-11 deficit, kudos to you. Your team didn't give up, you fought bravely, and you made the comeback. Extra points if you do it in the grand finals facing elimination. But on the other hand, when a 3-11 comeback happens, it is 90% the fault of the winning team for not being able to close out 2 rounds. I mean, do you know how hard it is to not win 2 rounds? I'm sorry, I mean, great job to Fnatic and all, but this was the most monumental choke job I've ever seen by a pro Valorant team, let alone loud, and Fnatic getting completely lucky on this Alpha Year collab to save the series only happens once every 3 universes. Fnatic worked hard for this trophy, but Loud worked harder to lose it. Again, Fnatic was dominant. They did a lot of stuff like 12-0ing PaperX on a Lotus half and beating EG 3-0 in the grand finals. They had an incredibly dominant display. But there was a certain something amiss. Ilya something Petrov, the Pacific MVP, for some reason or another, despite playing in Japan pretty much his entire career, could not get a visa to Japan in time for Masters Tokyo, leading to the Pacific MVP not being able to play with PaperX at Tokyo. Now, EG is a great team, don't get me wrong, but without PaperX at their full strength, nobody could really contest Fnatic. Of course, that by itself is a pretty big accomplishment for a team, but there's always going to be that what if on whether PaperX and something play Fnatic in the grand finals. Okay, so this loss actually didn't happen. It's a common misconception. Jing had a fever, Forsaken had no monitor, something's mouse was broken, Mindfreak couldn't hear any footsteps at all, and Devi is from Malaysia. Okay, bye. Alright, the video's over. Look, if you're angry with me, just drop a comment. I'll pin it. Alright, I'll argue with you live in front of everybody. And we can see who comes out on top. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.